Can the New York Jets finally defeat Tua and the Dolphins, or will Tua's winless streak in the cold finally end? A lot to talk about in this week's episode of Rich Sports Talk. Again, after multiple delays and technical issues, we are here to preview the Jets and Dolphins on Rich Sports Talk. Let's get your thoughts, potential on Justin Fields' future, and much more coming up on this episode of Rich Sports Talk. And we are just a couple of hours away, basically, when you really think about it, before the Jets will host the Miami Dolphins in what I think is the last winnable AFC East game on the schedule for the New York Jets. There is a lot to talk about again today. A lot of people are more tuned in to the college football playoff and seeing how the young quarterbacks are playing. But there is a lot of roster movement with potential injury down the home stretch. My thoughts on the backup quarterback position and what this defense has to do for the Jets to walk out with another win in MetLife Stadium. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rich Sports Talk, your home for all the latest and greatest on the New York Jets. If you'd like to jump in, make sure to comment, give us your questions, super chat to jump to the front of the line. And look, this to me, and I said it the first time, and again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I think this is important. When Mr. Aaron Glenn came in to be the new coach of the New York Jets, and he said, I don't want this to be the same old Jets. I said, that's fine, Aaron, but there's certain things that have to come off the checklist. Not being embarrassed in prime time, winning in the AFC East, but more importantly, this to me was one of them, was winning in the AFC East. And look, the first game was horrendous for the Jets. Let's call it for what it is. Darren Waller, who had just come out of retirement, was catching touchdowns over Sauce Gardner. The Jets go down on a 14-play drive with 13 running games, just literally pounding the snot out of the Dolphins' defensive line, only for Braylon Allen to get hurt. I'm fumbling the words. Only for Braylon Allen to fumble on the 1-yard line, going to the end zone. And then the next possession, Braylon Allen would get hurt and is seemingly done for the season. So that game also was famous for Aaron Glenn ripping this team in the locker room. This, to me, was a team that the Jets should have won. And look, I don't think the Dolphins are that great. I look at the schedule, and I look at the way Tua has played. And I know people are going, oh, my God, the Dolphins are on a 3-game win streak. All right, that's great. But do you know who the Dolphins have played? And more importantly, do you know how Tua has played? In the last 3 games, Tua has 2 touchdowns. Not a game, over 3 games with 2 interceptions. Has not gone over 200 yards in 3 straight games. Now, coincidentally, Devin Ackley, who I think is the Jets' biggest worry in this game, has gone over 100 yards in each of those games. To me, he's the biggest offensive threat for the Dolphins. But I just look at this team, and they're in a weird position. Because if you were to pull a Miami Dolphins fan, I think that they would tell you they want Mike McDaniel gone. And part of the reason why I was frustrated with week number 4 with the Jets was because I thought this was a great opportunity. Miami hadn't won a game. You could put them in the basement of this division early. You had planes circling the stadium, fire McDaniel, fire the GM. And look, Dolphins have moved on from the GM. But I just look at the last couple games. Week 8, they won 34-10 against the Falcons. Again, indoor game. They win against Buffalo, which, again, to me is still one of the most improbable wins of the season. They win against the Washington Commanders. Okay, interesting situation, but they were still playing relatively decent weather, and the Commanders don't have Jaden Daniels and have been struggling all season. Their last win came against New Orleans, 21-17. Where I'm getting at this is this. Tua, there will be a streak that is broken in this game. Tua is 0-7 in freezing games, but he's 6-0 against the Jets. So one of those stats is going to break, and I'm just hoping the Jets can beat Tua this week. And look, I understand they're shorthanded. I understand that they're playing better, but here's the thing. We've seen the Dolphins come up here in the cold weather. They don't like it. This offense does not function the same, and you know what they're going to want to do. They're going to try to run the snot out of the football. The big thing with this Jet team to me is this run defense has to show up. And look, Bijan Robinson is a different animal. Now, you can make a case that Acme is one of the top 5 running backs. I think Bijan's the best running back on a short list with Jahmyr Gibbs. They're probably my 1 and 2. But this run defense really has to step up. And look, this run defense might take a bit of a hit because you're looking in line for this weekend. Jason Brownlee, who's a big impact defensive player, is out seemingly for this week. And again, some of the moves the Jets have made leading up to this game, they've had Jordan Clark, the cornerback, activated to the active roster. The same with Brady Cook, who's been upgraded. And we'll get to Brady Cook and Justin Fields in a minute. They've elevated defensive back Trey Brown, Nick Needham. Additionally, they've placed Jarvis Brownlee Jr. and Marcelino McCray-Ball on the injury reserve. So basically, it sounds like Brownlee and Marcelino McCray-Ball are out for the rest of the season. But again, at this point, it gives the chance for some of the younger kids to play. But I think that this is going to be a big game for this Jets defense. And I want to see some variety. I know I'm speaking this into existence, but I want to see something else from this Wilkes defense, some variety. They have to get pressure onto it. Tua is not a mobile quarterback. This is a bottom half of the league offensive line. This is not a good offensive team. And let's be frank, if the Jets had a quarterback that could function, they'd probably win that last game against Miami. And you look at Miami, they're winning one possession games against bad teams. Like, beat Miami. Just beat this team who, again, I think their fan base is being delusional that they're 5-7 and going to make a run. Just end any idea of a playoff hope today. Win at home. Take care of this. And look, win an AFC East game. Because I'm telling you, the last 2 weeks of the season, let's be frank, I don't think either of those teams are singing. Because New England's going to be playing for the number 1 seed still in week 17. I really believe that. And week 18 with the Bills, maybe the playoff picture's wrapped up. But I guarantee you they're probably playing for seeding, because if they're going to be in the wild card, it's a lot better to be the highest wild card and playing the 4 seed than being the 7 and going all the way to a 2 seed. So I do think that does play in as well. So I do think that there will be a lot to look into this game. I have some key players I want to focus on the defense because, look, I think the offense can function. I think A.D. Mitchell and John Mechie are getting comfortable in this offense. Mechie, of course, had the rough game. I expect a bounce-back game. A.D. Mitchell has played really well again, career high last week. It's clear there he's the number 1 go-through receiver. I would like to see Mason Taylor incorporated more in the passing game. Again, I think he's a really good young player. I think this is a good game to get him going. And, of course, riding with Breece Hall, I think this offensive line needs to protect. And, look, Tyrod Taylor's got to be Tyrod Taylor. And again, questions, super chat, jump to the front of the line. I'll get to the defense in a sec, but I wanted to talk about a certain situation with the Jets that's happening this week. And I've kind of predicted this in the past shows where I said we probably will see Brady Cook at some point this season. But it was clear a couple weeks ago when Aaron Glenn said, look, we have a plan for Brady Cook. And I think the plan is for him to be the backup for the last couple of games. And lo and behold, now he's activated to the number 2. You look at it as well. All of a sudden this week, Aaron Glenn's talking him up. We think he can be a good quarterback in this system. We think he can be a good quarterback in the league. And again, even if somehow Brady Cook comes in and plays well, the biggest thing for me with Brady Cook is, can he prove he can be a backup quarterback? If he looks like a guy, like, if I'm going to miss my quarterback for 4 weeks, he's a guy that can run the offense and give me a chance to win a game or two. That is more than enough for what I want in a backup quarterback. So I'm really curious to see that. And look, I think you're going to see Justin Fields go on the IR silently. I mean, now, of course, he's on the injury report for a knee injury. I get the feeling what the Jets are eventually going to do is put him on the IR and, again, move on from him this offseason. But look, this is an opportunity potentially for Brady Cook. I think he's more of a game manager. And look, I think the big thing with Brady Cook is this. I think Brady Cook potentially gets in either the last 3 or 2 games of the season, because I still think that this staff wants to evaluate this offensive line, wants to evaluate these 2 young receivers that they have. And it's a lot easier to do with Tyrod Taylor. And yes, I know Tyrod Taylor probably isn't a starting caliber quarterback anymore. We're seeing the lack of mobility. He is starting to show a bit of his age. I still think he's a solid backup quarterback, but he knows how to run an offense. He knows how to read a defense. Brady Cook, when he gets in there, they're going to have to make it stupidly simple for him in the beginning. They're not going to have a lot of reads. They're going to have him run a more simple offense so he's not overwhelmed. So the big thing for me is I think that you want to get the full evaluation with Tyrod Taylor out there. And like I've been saying, I think he gives you the best chance to evaluate this team. I think we've been seeing that the last couple of weeks. The offense has stepped up. And I think that this is a great opportunity. Look, I think Brady Cook will get time this year. I don't know how much time. I don't know if it's garbage time in a game. I don't know if it's a game or two. I think we'll see him. And I think this was part of the plan, was they wanted Brady Cook to be the backup by the end of the season. Now we're at the back half of the season. So I do think there's a chance that we do see Brady Cook. Again, let's get to some of your comments. We'll talk about the defense in a little bit. Super chat to jump to the front of the line. And, of course, Tony is excited. He wants, hashtag Brady Cook. He wants Brady Cook. Let's see. Hopefully more than AZ Thomas will get a pick. I hope so, too. I definitely want to see that. And, look, that's the thing I love about the A.D. Mitchell trade. Like, he was a throw into that trade. And, I mean, let's be honest, too. I mean, one thing that is happening right now when we talk about the draft pick, and I think a lot of people are kind of ignoring this a little bit. I know the Jets are not tanking, but I would look around the league right now, and all of a sudden, a couple of things are happening. Number one, you have Dallas losing this week. They're down to 6-1. And that's important because you want them to be in the middle of the second round with that second round game in Detroit. They're still in the playoff hunt at 6-1, but it does feel like their playoff hits took a major hit in that game. The other one that's very important for me to keep an eye on is the Colts. Because if the Jets pick is going to move down the board and maybe finish 7 or 8, I don't think they're going to have the top 10, don't worry. But that first round pick, the one thing that would help supplant that is if the Colts pick keeps tumbling down. Sauce Gardner is going to be out this week again. And if you look at the Colts schedule down the stretch is brutal. And there's a good chance they might not make the playoffs. The Colts schedule, and keep in mind too, Daniel Jones has a hairline fracture in his hip. And they did not look like the same team. The Colts, the rest of the season, this is their schedule. At Seattle, brutal place to play with a really good team. Home against the 49ers. This week, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead a week. This week, tomorrow, they are on the road in Jacksonville, who they're playing for first place tomorrow. And then, December 28th, they're hosting Jacksonville. And then they have the Texans. So the Texans and Jaguars, who they're directly in competition with in their division, they have to play 3 times. And they just lost to the Texans at home. You're also playing the hottest team, probably the NFC, in the Seahawks, and a very good 49ers team. Right now, the Colts are 8-4. I think they'd probably finish 9-8 out of the playoffs, but am I out of the realm of possibility saying they could lose all their games, finish 8-9, and maybe all of a sudden that pick, instead of being 29 or 30th, is a 20th or 19th pick, which makes it a lot more valuable. I'm also curious to see, too, just a quick breakout note here is I'm very curious to see how these uniforms look tomorrow. I'm not a huge fan of how they look initially. Again, I want to see them on the field. The one thing I will say I like about the Gotham series, I think what they did with the end zones is really freaking cool, and I think that with the New York skyline, they should do that. I think what would look cool, too, is even they didn't put Jets in the end zone, but just did with the green-white skyline. I think that could be something really cool that they did. But, it is tough they lose Jarvis Brownlee on injury reserved with 5 games left. I really love him. Again, I still think he's going to be a very valuable piece for this team. Let me put it this way. This Jet locker room does seem a lot healthier because the Eagles reportedly have installed a positivity rabbit in their locker room. It showed up today, and the offensive line stressed to me that they are not sad. They just want a good vibes bunny. Do the Eagles know it's Christmas season and not Easter season? But I digress. So I just look at this team right now, too. And again, Fields declared out for Sunday. I think that Fields is not going to play another snap. I think he's officially done. Again, comments, super chat to jump to the front of the line. O-line is definitely doing a good job. And I do think Olu especially. Olu had a rough start to the season, but I think he's really come on down the stretch, Tony. And the other thing, too, is Armand Menbu has been terrific. Last week was probably his first rough game. I'm hoping he has a big bounce-back game this week. But, again, I feel pretty confident that the Jets have their bookend tackles. I love how they also have what I believe is a really good interior offensive line, Joe Tippmann. Again, Super Chat jumped to the front of the line, but let's get to the defensive side of the ball because this, to me, is going to be important. And there's a couple of players that I think are going to have a huge impact on this game. But I want to start off with who I think are the most two important. And that's the defensive line, more importantly, the defensive ends. While Jawan Briggs has done a really good job in the center, and I think he's even shown in the interior some nice interior pass rush pop, Harrison Phillips has been a bit banged up, but Saunders, I thought, stepped in very well. The Jets' pressure on the edges has not been great. And is a bad sign when in the last game you have Michael Clemens getting a sack in that game and you don't see the defensive ends for the Jets getting a sack. Look, they have been very hot and cold. And I thought it was ironic, too, because they did the piece on the edges for the Jets Online video this week. But Jermaine Johnson, I understand he's coming back from the Achilles. But Jermaine Johnson now hasn't had a sack since the New England game. He hasn't had a quarterback hit in the last 2 weeks. They need to get after Tua because Tua to me is a sitting duck. He's usually a sitting duck in that pocket. You need to get after him. And I do think it's unfortunate to ask Jermaine, who's coming off the Achilles, to really take on all this burden. But I look around and look, Will McDonald has 7 sacks, but 4 of them came in one game. Now, granted, he had 4 QB hits last week, 0, though, against Baltimore. I mean, he has been incredibly hot and cold. I mean, Pittsburgh game, 2 sacks, 3 hits, QB hits. Then the next couple of games goes 3 games in a row without a QB hit. Then all of a sudden, Cleveland has 5 QB hits, the 4 sacks. Then goes to New England, 1 QB hits, no QB hits against Baltimore, 4 QB hits, but no sacks last week. They have to get after Tua because the interior of this defensive line, unfortunately, right now, does not have a great interior pass rusher. I think Jawan Briggs is a nice internal pass rusher, but Harrison Phillips, to me, is an early first or second down, run-stopping defensive tackle. Yeah, he can maybe give you a little boost but he's going to give you, 2 or 3 sacks a season. I mean, Saunders, again, big athleticism, but again, I think he's more of a role defensive tackle at this point, more of a run stopper. And look, Mozzie Smith, who's been inactive, I don't know if he'll be suiting up this week, but for me, the Jets need to get home with their pass rush. And if they're not going to win with the defensive ends, they need more variety. Last week, they had Tony Adams come on a safety blitz. I want to see the safeties, especially right now. And I understand that the secondary has a lot of holes in it. Quantez Stiggers is digging with a concussion. Hopefully he can go this weekend. But like we said, Brownlee's out of the slot, so that means pieces are going to be moving around in the slot position. I would love to see the Jets be more aggressive, especially with Malachi Moore, who, again, I think has really shown great improvement over the last couple weeks. But Malachi Moore is a really good downhill running safety. Can we dial up at least 2 or 3 plays where he's coming up the middle trying to make a play? The Quincy blitz in New England, which was a great play, but they've gone away from that. I think that those guys really need to step up in terms of play calling. I also think we have to look at this linebacking core because let's be frank, there's a lot of questions with this linebacking core. Quincy has looked phenomenal since his benching. And I've been a proponent that the Jets have to lock him up long term. The problem that we're going to run into with Quincy is there's so many aspects with him that are tricky. He's going to be 30 next year. I would still give him a short-term contract and lock him in, but we don't know what Quincy wants. There's a very simple world where basically Quincy just says, you know what? I had a great time with the Jets. Didn't love how this last year went. getting toward the end of my career, I want to go somewhere to win, or even just simply says, I want to go to Dallas and play with Quinnen. It could be just that simple. He's like, look, I don't care if you offer me $5 extra million. I'd rather take a pay cut to go play with no state income tax in Texas and play with my brother. The other one's Jamian Sherwood, who, again, last week had an opportunity for a big blitz, wasn't able to get home. Since getting the big contract has been mostly a disappointment. Like, I can see a scenario where he's not here next year where they trade him, but I need him to step up this last couple games, because when you look around this defense, especially now, he's supposed to be one of the most talented players on this defense, and he's got to make an impact play, and I haven't seen that. But I also think this is a key game, too, especially with how much the Dolphins have been running the ball for Kiko. Because for Kiko, this game plays more into his script than in other weeks, where with New England, you knew they could throw the ball a lot. Cleveland, they were going to throw the ball a lot. With Kiko, you knew that he's an early down. He's an early down linebacker. So for him, and when I look at the Jets, I look at this team and I go, okay, this could be a scenario where Kiko could be a really valuable player. Like, he is pretty solid in the run defense. I'm curious to see if he'll get more playing time this week. Again, this is a defense, too, that when we look at it, they also have struggled against the run this year. I think a lot of it's they've played some really great running backs. But, I mean, look, I want to see them go out there and show that they can beat, Bijan. I mean, someone other than Bijan. But I do think that for this defense, there's going to be some gain. Look, I'm just trying to pull up some of the statistics here. So, like, with Kiko, I'm trying to see how Kiko, pull up exactly his stats the last couple of weeks. But, look, I think that this is going to be a big Kiko game because he is a early run down stopping middle linebacker. He had only one tackle last week. But I'd like to see him get more involved. And look, at this point in the season, there's not a lot of bodies left on this defense. And again, at that 6'2", 230 frame, can he get downhill? Can he get into the second level and cause disruption? And let's face it, too, the Jets have to continue being great on special teams. They've been one of the reasons they've had this turnaround is the special teams. They have to not make mistakes, keep playing the field position, get great returns, great field position. And look, bottom line is, for me, Aaron Glenn, it's very simple. You want to prove to this fan base things are changing? Go win an AFC East game. Because I think that will really not fully turn fans around, but I think you'll get some fans to start coming back a little bit. They've turned it around. They're playing well. Go on and beat the Dolphins. It's that simple. And we'll be back after the Dolphins tomorrow. We'll be coming on live after the game to break down all the action for the Jets versus the Dolphins. Again, should be an exciting game out in MetLife. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our latest live stream. And, of course, all our great off-season content to come. This week, I'm going to do a special episode on potential Jets free agents. So make sure you don't miss that at all. And you can make sure you don't do that by liking and subscribing. Also, check out our podcast wherever podcasts are available. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this episode of Rich Sports Talk. We will see you next time.